We are live. So we're live.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Rushmoor Labour Councillors online surgery. My name is Nadia, Councillor for Wellington Ward. Would our councillors from Cherrywood like to introduce themselves?
Good morning, I'm Councillor Christine Guinness, Cherrywood Ward.
Morning there, I'm Councillor Clive Grattan from Cherrywood Ward.
Good morning, my name's Ashley, I'm also from Cherrywood Ward.
Thank you. And our councillors from North Town?
Hi, I'm Councillor Gaynor from North Town Ward.
Good morning, Councillor Keith Dibble, North Town Ward.
Okay. And Aldershot Park?
Good morning, I'm Councillor Sophie from Aldershot Park Ward.
Hello, I'm Councillor Cherrywood from Aldershot Park Ward, and happy birthday to Keith Dibble.
Yes.
Happy birthday, Keith.
Thank you all very much.
And Wellington Ward?
Yeah, Alex Crawford, thank you.
Okay. So we're going to talk about the reopening of the town centre, and I think Terry is going to speak on this item. Terry?
Yeah, actually, Nadia, it's not just all reopening of the town centre. Town centre item is a report back on our meeting via Teams the other day, which Alex is going to give. Reopening is just reopening in general, and Aldershot, of course, has the same experiences as most other places. We heard last week that there are problems with the queuing systems, difficulty in marking them out, difficulty in actually physically staying 2 metres apart in queues. Well, of course, that's been relaxed to a certain extent. But we had a situation where one of our councillors ended up in the queue for the wrong shop or the wrong bank last week.
Oh, no.
But yeah, reopening, of course, it's moving on a bit today. All sorts of other things that you can do as from today. One of which, of course, is to go to the pub. Well, I have to say, I'm certainly not going to go to the pub under the current circumstances, because you have to register, you have to be served at the table, you have to have protective clothes, masks and social distances, carry hand sanitizer. It's not very easy, and that applies to quite a few other things as well, of course. Big disappointment, of course, sports centres and swimming pools still aren't reopening. We're going to have to wait a little bit longer for that. But the big danger, of course, is that a second spike or an extension of the present one, because of people ignoring the very necessary rules. And we see what has happened in Leicester, where they've had to go into another lockdown period because cases are increasing again. And if we're not careful, we'll end up like the USA, which has now seen, I think, 18 states now have had to reimpose their lockdown restrictions because of the reemergence of cases. Now, this is all pretty bad news for plenty of people. I know Alex, and certainly I, won't be going out anywhere in public until September, until it's all over, which is a bit of a shame because Manchester United versus Bournemouth is on BT today, and I don't have BT. But yeah, it's still pretty bad, but it's getting better, and we just have to keep our eye on it week by week and be sensible, I think.
Right, yeah. So in Aldershot Town Centre, I know that the vinyl floor stickers have been removed and they've been replaced with spray painted footsteps, and they've also put in a new queuing system for the market stalls and for Lidl and the fruit and veg stall, which I already said. And that seems to be working a bit better. It's more clear, and the stickers can't come off the path. Sorry?
I mean, certainly in Nadia, in the local shopping neighbourhood, certainly, I think any barbers or hairdressers today that don't do appointments will have a queue a mile long. And certainly in North Lane this morning, my barber's, which is open, there is a very long queue. So anyone planning to go to a hairdressers or barbers today without an appointment, be prepared for a long wait.
Yes, Christine was just saying about Stratford's, the queue, and they opened at 7:15 this morning. They got permission from the Wellington Centre to open early, and apparently the queue was huge.
Yeah. My mum was queuing outside Wellington Centre for it to open so that she could go in and get a coffee from Wimpy's, and she said, yeah, it was just queues and queues of men waiting for the doors to open to go in.
That's good. Good signs that people want to use local shops. Let's encourage people to use them, but to be prepared for a long wait, I think, is the message.
Hello, Nadia. It's Councillor Porter.
Hello.
I'd just like to echo what Terry was saying about, with pubs opening and with shops opening. It's that we really, really still need to, the term is stay alert. And the reason for that, being someone who's had COVID myself, who's held patients' hands as they've passed away, it's not a very nice experience. And I think that, some people have going to go out this weekend and feel that everything's changed, everything's open, lockdown's over, but we still need to stay really vigilant and continue with your washing your hands and social distancing.
Yeah, that's right. And there are the town centre ambassadors will be in the town from 10 till 4, and there's also stations there where you can use the hand sanitizers. But yeah, it'll be tricky, I think.
But I think that's very wise words from Sophie and Terry, because there is a perception in some people's eyes that the lockdown or the easing of lockdown means a free for all, and we return to what was normal before the end of March, and that isn't the case.
Yeah.
And one hopes that where people are queuing, they are social distancing. So very wise words, Sophie.
Right, and the this weekend was supposed to be the Airborne Forces weekend, but that's been proposed, and the Trafalgar is the only pub that's not opening in Aldershot this week. We're going to open it next week. Any other questions, or would anyone like to speak on that?
All right.
Nadia?
Clive?
Just think that I've noticed they're looking at organising and reopening the car boots as well. So that's going to be on a very sort of limited process as well.
Yes, I think the Aldershot car boot's open today, but it's only open for regular stall holders at the minute. Anyone else will be turned away.
I got a question then.
Yeah.
So I was in the supermarket yesterday, and I overheard a couple who were going up one of the aisles, and the wife of this pairing, I assume they were married. The wife of this pairing, I might be wrong, said, "Oh, we can't go up here. The arrow says don't go this way." And the husband says, "Oh, that don't make no difference. It's just a recommendation. You don't have to do it." Now, is that true? And should we be? I mean, just in the context of the stay alert thing, how do we manage the anxiety of people that take a very relaxed approach to social distancing?
Can I come back in on that one, Nadia?
Yeah.
It is a problem. These people who decide that the don't apply for them, or the rules are wrong, they're entitled to overtake to ignore them. In America, they have a group of women who they call entitled Karens. People who think they're entitled to do whatever it is they want to do. And unfortunately, there's quite a few people who got this attitude that, no, it doesn't matter, it's all wrong. My girlfriend came across a couple in a supermarket the other day, woman in front of her saying that's all rubbish, it's all made up, we don't need to be. But we do. It's not rubbish. Again, in America, you got congressmen saying that the experts like Fauci are making it all up, and that the science is rubbish. It's not. We've got to get that through to people, and we've got to make sure that people understand that it's not just their lives; it's the lives of other people that they're paying with if they don't obey the rules. Now, as for the following the hours, I don't think it's compulsory. There's no law that says you have to. But on the other hand, the people who own or run the store are quite entitled to ask you to leave if you won't abide by their rules.
Yeah, okay, Terry. And I think a lot of people that received the letter that were on the vulnerable list will be coming out to venture into the supermarkets, and we have to look after them as well as ourselves. We're not just doing it for us, we're doing it for everyone. Halleh?
Hello. Yes, regarding the reopening, I went yesterday and I talked to the owner of the Frankie's Cafe in the High Street, Aldershot, and we were hoping that he could join us this morning to tell us a little bit about his challenges on the reopening. But they are reopening today anyway, and he was telling me about some of the things that the problems that he had in finding the hand sanitizer, the PPEs, and all the signs as well. He was telling me that how difficult it's been for him to find the signs, the sticky signs that stay 2 meters apart. Obviously, everybody's reopening this week, and everybody's trying to find those. And he eventually had to print them and try to stick them on the floor and on the door. So there's a lot of challenges as well for the people actually preparing and opening up in a sort of nice and making sure that everybody's protected and they are protected as well. So I think that's something we need to look into and see what are the challenges of. I don't know whether anybody else heard about those challenges that the shopkeepers have got for reopening. No? No, I've not spoken to anyone, but I'm sure they're under a lot of pressure. From that.
It's a great question to ask, though, and I think if people share their experiences later, that's something we can ask on our Facebook pages.
Yeah, I think that would be really good to see how it goes actually, and what can we do to help them.
Yeah,
I think the main thing I've heard about is the cost actually of the shields that companies have had to put up to obviously protect them. The difference, obviously, the shields on the counters between the customer and the retailers. The cost of those shields, obviously, everyone's trying to get hold of them. So the cost of those has dramatically seen a major increase in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I mean, I've over the last couple of days spoken to 3 or 4 traders in North Lane shopping area who are reopening today or early next week, and they seem pretty confident that they've been able to implement the spirit of the guidelines from the government, and the 2 hairdressers and barbers have taken slightly different or implemented slightly different ways of doing that, but that they were both confident that they will abide by the rules, as is the P&R Cafe. So it's interesting to see over the next few days how that works out. But
it's good to know that this is probably there's not that many people with these problems, and everybody managed to prepare themselves well.
I guess it's how they've prepared. Yeah, I mean, some businesses I'm sure would have been preparing for the reopening from day one. They were locked down. Others probably leaving it till the last minute. But that's just down to how different companies operate.
It's fair enough, yes.
But I think if any local business has an issue, they should certainly flag it up either directly with the local authority or with ourselves as councillors to see what help they can be given. But certainly the P&R Cafe yesterday, as a result of an inquiry they made to Gaynor and myself, the team from the council were out seeing them yesterday to see if they could put a few tables and chairs on the pavement outside, which of course is public highway. I mean, we don't know what the outcome of that is, but that was a small step to see that they could get some more trade. But I think But judging by the queues this morning, that our local residents want to use those local traders, which is good news.
Clive, did you want to come in?
Yes, a couple of things. First thing with hash, I understand your problem, and it is, as Terry said, it is voluntary to follow the markers on the floor. But speaking to a couple of people when I was in one of the supermarkets, they had a problem because when they actually go round the shops and follow the arrows, and then they forget something, which is back on a previous, they have a job to find out how to get back to that gangway where they can actually get what they wanted in the first place.
Tell me about it. You're doing laps and laps around certain counters. Like I've been down the broccoli aisle about 6 times last time. Anyway, sorry.
Good exercise. I was speaking to a couple of traders yesterday about the screens. The price of some of the screens have over doubled recently, and they are having trouble getting them. And I spoke to one other one and said that seeing that most of the PVC that screens are made of are coming in from abroad, one of the car manufacturers that actually produce number plates are converting some of their number plate sections to actually produce screens, because that's the only stuff that's coming in at the moment. So they're producing screens from the PVC that would they normally use for number plates. So it is getting awkward.
Can I just say, my professional job, my paid job, I am receiving probably a dozen emails a day from companies offering to sell PPE, shields, gloves, masks, partitions, face screens, all of that. So there is a huge market out there, and I guess people making lots of money. But there's certainly that stock is available, but I guess people having to pay premium prices, which is a slight worry.
Yeah, that's the problem. If it's getting down to the small trade and the one-man bands on their own, they're finding it very awkward.
Yeah. And corporates are buying in bulk. Company I might know very well have got 1 million gloves in Rome for their workforce in Italy. So if you multiply that by all the corporates, there may be not much left for the smaller companies.
Right, so have we got any more questions on that? Would anyone else like to speak? No. So we'll move on to the regeneration, which is Terry or Alex?
No, I think, yeah, sure. We, as some of the councillors were able to attend a regeneration workshop from the Rushmoor Borough Council on Thursday. And there are two aspects that were covered in some detail. One was the Union Street development in Aldershot, and the other was the Civic Quarter in Farnborough. So I'll deal first with the Union Street development, if I may. With the planning permission that's been obtained for that, the council is now turning its attention to delivery of the project, which is presenting some difficulties and concerns about how best to go about it and its viability. So they've employed consultants at Grant Thornton who are assisting the officers to carry out what's called due diligence. And Grant Thornton have produced part 1 of a report with part 2 to follow. And we're assured that councillors like us will receive copies of that report so we know what's going on. Councillors will then be asked how they want to proceed with different aspects of the Union Street development, such as financing and development works, ownership of the completed development, which registered provider should have a long lease on the 20 units of affordable housing within the scheme. The council, they've appointed solicitors to negotiate with the University of Creative Arts in Farnham to provide 100 student flats as part of the development. in the meantime, the next phase of demolition of the site, including asbestos removal, will go ahead. And I think Christine asked a question about the remaining bits of site acquisition at Union Street. I don't know whether you were satisfied with what you heard about that, Christine.
So yeah, so the freehold land assembly is complete. So RBC now owns the whole complete section. But there is obviously still occupational tenancy that remains with two of the sites, which is Famous Door and Party Buzz. So of course my question to RBC is, you know, they've got the demolition that they're hoping to go ahead sort of October, November, do all the asbestos work, but is the occupancy of those tenancies going to be a problem? Is that going to delay the demolition? They have said that they can't see it being a problem. They can't see it being delayed, but they said they couldn't really answer that day, but they would get back to us on Monday with how they were going forward with that. So really, I can't answer until Monday, but hopefully by the time we come back to our next surgery, we'll have all the answers.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Christine.
So I just come in on that. I mean, did you? I wasn't party to all of the presentation on Thursday, but I would put that question in writing again, Christine, because I think there are still one or two issues with those current tenants. So I think, as you will do, keep pushing on that.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. With respect to the civic quarter, they were quite bullish about that, saying that the plans for a civic quarter in Farnborough are going ahead, with a planning application apparently due by the end of this year. And they reported back to us on an earlier consultation they'd had with councillors about what councillors' priorities were for the civic quarter site in Farnborough, and there was no surprise really that the top priority was the green agenda. Councillors wanted to make sure that all aspects of the civic quarter regeneration were to be green. With respect to that, one of the elements that's now being considered is the relocation of the Pinehurst car park, so that parking is more integrated within the civic quarter site rather than being isolated in a car park that's in a sort of circulatory system. Another aspect was that the council offices should be relocated within the new leisure centre with the Farnborough Library, which was that was quite a thought. The council offices site would then be available for another use, such as a hotel or a care home, which was mentioned. Coming out of that, and the top priority to be given to the green agenda, the councillors will be invited to a series of 3 seminars over the next few months on BREEAM, what's called the Building Research Establishment Environmental Assessment Model, which is used
Councillor Crawford, a technical term, it's BREEAM. BREEAM.
Oh, right, sorry. I thought BREEAM was what I had for my dinner last night.
That's what you Scots do, I'm afraid, but BREEAM.
So BREEAM, or BREEAM, there we go. BREEAM is used for assessing, rating and classifying the sustainability of buildings. So they're obviously serious about getting the green agenda and getting all councillors signed up to that. But whether I will be able to, I suppose I'll have to attend 3 seminars in the next 3 months on this subject. It sounds all very technical, but I suppose that's what we have to do in order to get to grips with what's going to be involved. Okay, thank you, Nadia. That's all I had to say. I can take any questions if anyone has it.
I don't have any questions, but obviously being on there myself, I did like the idea of the civic hug, which you just talked about with Rushmoor Borough Council, the leisure centre and the library all being together, purely because they also mentioned community, which obviously, you know, we all know with Ellis Hall being pulled down, we are lacking in community centre. So I am rather hoping that they are going to put in extra rooms there for us to be able to use as a community base.
Good morning, Chris.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, sure. So can we just finish off that point about the community aspect? I think this is one of the problems is that in terms of that, they've promised to make provision for replacement of Ellis Hall, but if and it does seem that the viability of these schemes is a big question mark at the moment, because there was a thought a couple of years ago that the civic quarter was going to be so successful financially that it was going to be able to subsidise the Union Street development in Aldershot. Well, any mention of that seems to have gone away now. And so, I was questioning them on Thursday about the actually the viability of, you know, the hundreds of homes that they're due to provide in the civic quarter. That's where the money is going to come from. And of course, with that's all up in the air at the moment, is how viable these huge housing developments of flats are going to be in the future. It's not just councillors' priorities that we have to address. The council has to address the priorities of the prospective buyers of these flats. And that's the council is going to have to pay attention to market research to make sure that the flats they're going to provide in Farnborough Civic Quarter raise enough money in order to make the Civic Quarter financially viable. And within that respect, that's where it's great to have community rooms, but it's what we found in Aldershot is that the community rooms there are in Princess Hall, for example, are so expensive that the community can't afford to use them.
Yeah.
So it's this whole conflict between providing what the community wants, what the residents want, and making these huge capital projects financially viable. It's a huge problem.
Well, sorry, can I just come in there? That's why, you know, we need to, as members, be involved in who will own these facilities at the end of the project, because if they retain in council control, then those pricing levels can be set potentially with a subsidy that the community can afford. But if it's built and then sold to private companies, then that commercial element comes into play, doesn't it? So I think there are lots of questions that we will have to deal with, but also lots of scrutiny that we have to undertake to make sure that there is the right outcome. And that's why the questions Christine's asking on Union Street are really valid.
To come in on that also, that I know that the council are actually looking at all their community centres around, because at the moment most of them are free for local communities to use, and they're looking at maybe having to put a charge on them, which they've been looking at for the last year. And take Alex's point of view on the actual council office at the moment, there was some time back the notion that they were going to put them into housing and affordable housing over there, but that seems to have gone by the wayside at this moment in time as well. So things are moving, and there wasn't much talk that I can remember about any retail or what the retail units would be in the civic quarter.
Well, we don't know what they're going to be, but the two of the areas were H1 and H2 on the maps were retail, but one of them was possibly a hotel as well.
Which is not what we really call retail, is it?
No, sure. I think the difficulty there is that as I understand it, the council now is looking to take a substantial share of another site in Farnborough, which is mainly for retail. So they can't, you can't have over provision of retail at a time when retail, physical retail, is in the doldrums. And so this is the whole issue. That's why that it's definite that the civic quarter depends almost totally on the success of the selling the housing element associated with it to people coming into Farnborough who can afford the high prices that there will be for these new high quality flats.
Yeah, Ash, did you want to speak?
Thank you, Nadia. It's just a general question. You guys obviously have your finger on the pulse when it comes to detail. I must confess, I don't think most people will understand the particular details and the consideration and the factors behind some of the decision making. And one of the things that comes very clear back to me is I understand the point on financial viability that you're hammering home, Alex, and I think that's really important. But what I don't understand is how that, which is a really high level comment, which has a lot of detail behind it, but what does that mean in terms of, does that mean the community gets nothing? Because ultimately the balance on what the community gets as opposed to the financial viability of the project, there will always be more profit to be gleaned by reducing what you give back to the community. That's my view. So how do you work to ensure that something comes back to the community?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that's where the, in a sense, the councillors' priorities were to be set, and that's clear. But you only have to look at, for example, the Westgate development. That was an opportunity there to have some emphasis on the community element. Well, it was, as Keith pointed out, who owns that? It was sold off to a property interest in the insurance market, and it's totally commercial. And so nothing there is for the community other than the open space. But the open space is only for sitting in. Nobody's allowed to organise anything in that open space, which would be ideal for community events. But the commercial owner doesn't allow it. And this is the big danger, that we could see all of these things hollowed out in that kind of way.
And to take that one step forward on that, and it's, if you have a look at that Westgate Centre now, half the shops are all shut again, aren't they? So there is no commercial element there. So the civic part and the payback to our local residents should have been foremost.
Yeah.
Nadia, if I could just come in for a moment. I mean, it's all very well. Yes, we're going to have these seminars and we're discussing the way forward. But that's the way forward and that existed 6 months ago. We don't know yet what effect this coronavirus epidemic is going to have on housing demand, on office space demand, and on commercial demand. I think there may be a completely different ball game. And once we're out, because I think everybody agrees that the world will never be the same, we've made some changes which will never be reverted back from. So we've got to take this with not so much into salt, but we've got to be a bit careful, because I think there will probably be some big changes in the next 6 months over the plans that we already have in place.
Yeah, you're right, Terry. Keith, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I mean, Terry's right. And I think we as councillors need to be involved at every step of the way here. And the work that, I mean, we always have a wry smile when highly paid consultants are used, but the work that a company called Grant Thornton are doing for the council at the moment is very, very important, because they're doing the analysis of the various markets and the best financial model to go forward. Because you're right, I mean, the way people operate has changed during the last 3 months and will continue to change. And in the world of corporate office space, the process from traditional working to more flexible working has probably taken a 5-year step in 3 months. So that has a knock-on effect of companies will require less space as a footprint to work in, but also the design of new housing and apartments will change because there will need to be capacity for a home office. So when, the up and coming, young graduates will buy their first place often a 1-bedroom flat. Today, that wouldn't have the capacity to work from home in. So going forward, many of the developments we've spoken of today would have to be redesigned, or the residential side redesigned, to take into account that demand now for home working. So you're right, I think, and that's why, whilst it's quite painful to have all these seminars, it's important that we participate and really follow through what is being said, because decisions made today will impact on the next 20 years, really, of our towns.
Good points.
But if you take, just for example, if you take Westgate, what do you see as the general public? We see a cinema that's opening, I think, reopening, which is good, and lots of empty restaurants. So it looks pretty poor and depressing. But if you're a pension fund or the financial institution that owns those restaurants, to them, it doesn't matter whether they're working or empty, because the leaseholders are still paying the rent. So for the owners of those property, the freeholders, in a sense, it doesn't matter whether the traders are trading or not, because they're still receiving their rent on a monthly basis. And those units could stay empty for a long time, but the financial institution that owns them will still keep receiving the money. So that's the danger, as Alex says, when you go from public ownership to private ownership.
Yeah, the cinema's open on the 31st here, I think.
Is it?
Yeah. And then there's a 24-hour gym going to the open Harvester site. So gyms and hotels. Does anyone have any questions on that or would like to comment? Otherwise, we'll move on to the playgrounds. Yeah, playgrounds then. Keith?
Good news is that as of Rushmoor went round on Thursday and Friday, removing the signs and the cable ties and the locks, which everyone interpreted as soon as they were taken off, they could be used. And certainly Manor Park was very busy yesterday, as were other play areas. Picking up the points that Sophie and Terry made earlier on, the people using the playgrounds seemed to forget what social distancing was about. But it's now business as usual, whilst respecting social distancing in the Rushmoor owned playgrounds, ball courts and such things. Many of our playgrounds are not all, some of them are not owned by Rushmoor and owned by management companies and housing associations, and I assume they would be opening as well this weekend, which in one ways, I mean, it's great for young children who've not been able to go to the parks and play, or use the play equipment, and will also probably help in stopping, certainly in Northtown, Gaynor has been very much involved in the Greenway play area, where whilst it's been closed, it's been taken over by a group of youngish teenagers as their meeting point. So now that that'll be open for families to use, maybe that group will have to go somewhere else. But yeah, playgrounds are now open, and but social distancing is in place.
If I come in on that also, Nadia, the play area in Moore Road is now open. The sign's been put up, and our new 2 areas of gym equipment is now open for use as well. Myself and Christina will be going down there this afternoon to get completely out of breath by using them. And the main point on there is what Keith said earlier, and Terry, is that when you use these equipment and stuff around the parks is that you need to take some sanitizers and wipe them down after you finish with them, because there'll be people using them after you. So sensibility and being alert is one of the main things as well when using these.
Yeah, we have to take some responsibility ourselves, don't we?
Yeah.
You know, you sometimes, Nadia, you can sometimes say you speak too soon. I've just had Gaynor and I've just had a note in from a North Town resident saying that the Woodlands Walk play area hasn't been opened, but of course that's not owned by the council, that's owned by a management company. So best to check before you go on the assumption that all playgrounds are open, but the one in Vixen Drive, Woodland Walk, has not been open today, and we'll take that up with the management.
Okay. Any other questions or observations? Christine's already got the wipes and the hand sanitizers. Are you prepared?
I have, yes. I was going to talk about it on our when we got to our Cherrywood ward update, but yeah, I've got our wipes, because obviously we need to wipe the equipment before we use it, and hand sanitizer, and we should be wearing masks as well, because obviously, you know, if you're exercising, that's extra breathing. Well, it's definitely going to be extra breathing with me. And then we should be wiping them down afterwards after we've used them as well, ready for the next person. But yeah, we are super excited that, you know,
Don't forget the pictures.
Our new playground and our gym equipment is open. They have updated to say that the BMX pump track and the mugger and that are slightly delayed now because of COVID. The contractors are still behind on other jobs, so they're not looking to start work on those till August now. But yeah, I just can't wait to get down and see if I can fit down the slide.
About Christine, I think it's important to make the point, isn't it, that, you know, that hygiene and cleansing is down to the individual user of the equipment, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, RBC have been good in, you know, putting sanitizer points and that around the towns and things, but there's no way, you know, logistically, you couldn't monitor a play park and, you know, have somebody there all day cleaning every different play park. So it is down to the individual.
Well, I thought grumpy Councillor Grattan could do that and enjoy that role, wouldn't he?
Yeah, so you do need to be prepared and take, you know, cleaning wipes with you and your hand sanitizer. You know, it is important that we don't spread the COVID-19. But also, you know, if you are taking wipes, please don't dump them on the floor. We do have bins, and if the bins are full, take them home with you, please.
Just to take one point on that, Christian, I think we should have made sure we had some benches near the gym equipment so we could actually revive ourselves afterwards.
Ash?
Yeah.
You're on mute. Okay. So let's move on to ward updates. We'll start with Aldershot Park.
Oh, hello,
sorry.
just in time.
Oh,
just in time. I got kicked out, but I'm back again. Well, as you know, we have had some issues with antisocial behaviour in Aldershot Park, and we've been working with the police. Now, this weekend there is a dispersal order granted in Aldershot Park, and it started last night at 8 p.m. and we have it until 8 p.m. on Sunday. And what a dispersal order is it gives officers the powers to disperse large groups of people, and that will be outside of the park. And there's quite a large area, which we've shown on our Facebook group of where that dispersal order will cover. Now, we still urge, the police are urging everyone or anyone witnessing antisocial behaviour to still call 101 or 999 if they're observing it there and then. It's been a really difficult time for the residents of Aldershot Park, because it seems to have been, you know, a place to go for groups of, it's not just children, it's not just youth, it's grown adults as well, and it's been quite noisy for them. So we we met with the council to look at what provisions we could put in place to try and prevent that happening in the future. So we're still in the early stages of those discussions, so I can't share too much at the moment, but we will share those with you. And what has happened along Guildford Road is the residents are now coming together. We've started a neighbourhood watch scheme with them, and we're going to be delivering letters to try and encourage people to get involved and really have that sense of community spirit to take charge of where they live. So we'll update you on how that goes, and hopefully this weekend should be okay for the residents.
Can I just say, I think we should thank the Aldershot Park councillors, the council, and the police for the way that everyone seems to have acted really quickly to deal with this after you flagged it up. I believe you had to quote our absent colleague, Councillor Roberts, a high-level meeting and did some planning for this weekend. Is that right?
Yeah, we.
I hope it was at a top table as well, but.
Well, I was there, so I don't think it was that top table. We had, we met with the council, the police, and the local, lots of the CCTV people. So there's a whole multidisciplinary approach to this, and it's on everyone's. Everyone's fully aware of it. So it shows real collaborative working, and I think it's it's really good, and it's been really, the council have been really responsive as well. So it's really positive.
Yes, it's been hard, Sophie. Everyone's been working hard on this behind the scenes as well. I think people don't realise how much work goes into.
No, and I think from what the police were saying, there's a lot of antisocial behaviour everywhere.
Mm.
But whether it's whether it's just worse because Aldershot Park is located in a residential area, I'm not too sure, but it has been particularly bad for us. I mean, unless anyone else has any questions, we on another note, we've been working with the steering committee at the White Lion to keep the White Lion roaring, and what we've been helping them with is to try and promote the fact that that they're still running and still looking to run a community pub. So we've hopefully, when the arena comes to your doorstep, you'll see there'll be an article about the White Lion and how you can get involved. Unfortunately, they won't be opening today, but they will. They are still looking for pledges. They are still looking for people who would be keen to get involved or financially contribute to be part of a community hub. And I really hope that it is set up, because I think it will be really fab for the residents, the residents of Aldershot, not just those of Aldershot Park.
Sophie,
Yeah.
were they looking at doing a community share scheme to take donations on that?
Yes, yeah. So they've been working with the Plunkett Foundation to look at running for local people to put to buy a share of the pub.
On the antisocial behaviour part, I've been told by local environment people that this is just something that started a couple of months earlier, where they normally have an increase of this sort of activity during the summer months. So it's just months early, and it's no more than they would expect.
Well, quite interestingly, we've seen the amount of antisocial behaviour reports double from this time last year in Aldershot Park. So I think we've gone from 14 to 28. So that's quite a huge jump of what is normally expected. Some of that could be related to the changes in the current climate. But I think if we don't target it now, we don't want that doubling again.
No, I can't agree.
I think it could be related. Everything's shut. There's not much to do for people, so they just go out and gather in groups, don't they? I mean, it's pretty boring at home for teenagers and everyone.
Yeah, I agree with you, Councillor Martin. I think it's really highlighted as well the lack of, the lack of youth services in the borough. So I think that's something that we could really look at to see if that could bring any improvements.
And the Lido's not opening this year?
No, it's not opening.
For a month. So.
No, it's not going to be opening this season, and I think that's a sensible decision. We don't know what's going to happen, and it's going to be very difficult to carry out social distancing. But hopefully next year it will come back. It will come back bigger and better. But Alex Crawford, who is friends, a founding member of Friends of the Lido, might have something else to say about the Lido.
Oh. Alex?
I shall reappear. Yeah, no, I don't have anything else to say. I mean, it was just Rushmoor, in its wisdom, decided to make the announcement yesterday. I suppose this bit of bad news they might hope would be submerged in all the good news about the pubs and the hairdressers and all of that opening, that people might not notice that the Lido. But actually, the response on social media has been tremendous. People are really fed up that they can't get to the Lido this summer, because in the past it's been part of their summer activities. And what do you do if you've got a nice sunny day in Aldershot and you've got 2 or 3 kids that want something to do? You take them to the Lido. But there we are. Not this year.
I have seen as yet that the way to get around social distancing in swimming pools and Lidos is to empty the water out of lanes 2, 4 and 6. No, nobody
Okay, so that's it for Aldershot Park then, Terry, unless you have anything else to report.
Sorry, no, so emphasise what I said, Nadia. It's a little disappointing that they're stopping at 8 o'clock on Sunday, because in the past evenings there's been a particular problem until sort of 2 o'clock in the morning. So I can't see the point of stopping so early. But in the welcome response, it's been difficult to get in, and I'm sure people will be quite pleased. So we've got a move on it.
I think they can apply to expand it should they feel the need to, is what they were saying. So I think they have, there's certain rules and regulations that they have to go by.
Sorry, you finished? Let's move on to Cherrywood then.
Well, I think we said most of it. Our parks are opening up, our new gym system is running. Don't want to keep going over the same old thing about litter and fly tipping, because that's happening everywhere, so I can't see that. Christine might be able to do an update on our local drugs raid system.
Yeah, they're still being raided. I have got an update on, obviously there was an announcement last week that Lidl's is moving into Solartron Retail Park. I have been asked by a couple of residents when they're actually opening, and I'm afraid to say I haven't a clue. There's a lot got to take place before they'll actually get to that stage. But what I can update is that Rushmoor Borough Council have said that the change in the roads of Invincible Road, where they're going to be putting in a new road to help with the traffic flow, will be starting this month, and they hope to be completed by Christmas. So that's good news. So hopefully that'll help with the congestion around that area, because I do think obviously when Lidl's opens as well, that is going to be even more congested. So hopefully they'll all be coming out of there, turning left, following it left, and following it round and out.
What unit are they?
Sorry. Can I just ask, Christine, where exactly? I mean, what's Solartron Business Park?
Sorry.
What is Solartron Business Park? What does it comprise of?
So at the moment, it's made up of white goods. So you've got DFS and
Carpet right.
pets at home, carpet right. So it's basically.
Oh, it's that one there, right? Okay, yeah. Right. So,
Yeah.
if you are they taking the place of an existing one?
So yeah, so carpet right are moved. There's an empty unit there already, and
Yeah,
then carpet right is
um,
next to it. Carpet right are going to be moving out and moving into a unit somewhere else, which will free
Right.
up the 2 units next to each other.
Yeah.
and
Okay.
living
All
staying
right.
in there.
Yeah. Understand. All right. Thank you.
Chris, did you want to come in there?
Okay.
I think Chris put his hand up, but you're on mute, Chris. You have to unmute.
No, there are a couple of things, but no, nothing on that. I was just waving at Alex because he sent me a message. Turn your mic off, Chris.
Oh,
Okay, so let's move on to North Town Ward.
Okay, I'll go first. Monday of this week, we had a Teams call with a group of local residents and the police, Gaynor and ourselves, to talk through a hotspot in the ward, and it gave the residents the opportunity to get 1 or 2 things off their chest, and our local PCSO and her colleague was able to reassure the residents and remind them that every incident must be reported on 101 either by telephone or online. And whilst that's very frustrating and does cause frustration for that long wait, that they do, as we know, set their priorities by the number of incidents they receive or reports they receive. So that was that was a very positive meeting. We've been out and about talking to the traders before they reopen today. And Monday, I think Gaynor's arranged a meeting with KFC and McDonald's to get an update on their traffic situation. And that, I think, has seemed to have settled down now. We've got a community walk on Sunday where we're inviting residents to join us at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. For about an hour, we'll have a wander around parts of North Town, and there's been some pretty positive feedback on that. So that's 2 or 3 things to myself, but I'm sure Gaynor's got to add to that.
Yes, well, just to start off by again saying happy birthday to you, Keith.
Thank you very much.
Hope that you are able to actually take some time out to relax.
Yeah. Wisley Gardens this afternoon for a family picnic in the rain, I think, but that should be good.
Good. So yes, it seems to have been quite a busy week for things going on in casework, with everything from noise to smells to
smells. You want to mention smells?
Yes, lots of all the way from that to lots of missing cats. As you said, we have spoken to various people about various issues. One thing is reoccurring smell on the farm estate. Now, I know this has been going on and you've been dealing with it, Keith, for quite a while, on and off. The smell isn't there all the time, and it's really tracking down where it is. So we have met with residents and liaising with environmental health to try and get to the bottom of this. I don't know if you have anything else to add on that one, Keith.
No, I think it's we the smell we thought had complaints had really, if smells can dry up, they dried up the complaints. One of the companies that alleged to the problem did invest in some infrastructure which stopped the smell, but it's certainly back this week, and you and I have both been down there, and there was that pretty nasty smell in the air. So again, it's just people just got to keep reporting it. That's really important. I know you charged down there yesterday, didn't you? And when it was flagged up.
Yes, because I hadn't actually smelt it before, so I was quite keen to actually smell it as well as just hear about it. I can only describe it really from my point of view as it was a burning smell. But yeah, I don't know if you can add any more to that.
No, it's just an odd, unpleasant.
Yeah.
And you don't know where it's coming from.
Well, there are two factories or industrial units that are the potential suspects. I wouldn't want to name them on air because that would be unfair.
Yeah.
But and the Richard Ward from Environmental Health is liaising with them and the residents. So they probably may have to invest in some more filters or something. But we shall wait. We shall see. But it's. If you're in your garden, it would be a pretty unpleasant smell for hour after hour.
And yes, I mean, last Sunday, actually, we also met with some local residents around the Hague Road, Wolf Road corner, that junction where there's, due to some
Until going to Wisley tomorrow.
Unfortunate parking, they are...
I'm just asking that.
Terry, can you turn your mic off, please?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Yes, so it's making that junction rather difficult for visibility. So we have added that on to the list of priorities for parking restrictions to make that corner safer. The noise I was referring to was to do with the pile driving that we talked about last week on the new development. Luckily, liaising with the developers there, they have managed to actually complete that in less time than they thought. So they managed to get it all done, I think, within 8 days rather than 3 weeks, which was what they had planned. So I'm sure a lot of North Town residents will be very grateful not to be having that noise disturbing them anymore. What else have we been doing? Yes, so with regards to the meeting with the police and residents, as you say, Keith, I think that the residents have a better understanding of why it's important to register these with 101, whether that's online or on the telephone. 999, as you say, if it's urgent and ongoing. And also that feedback with the police. So I know that they have been upping their patrols in a particular area of Woodland Walk, in this case, where there were antisocial behaviour issues. So it is effective to keep doing that. What else do we have? Oh, it was very good this week to see some new street signs, road signs going up that we had applied for quite a while ago. That's great. And also on our walk last week to pick up some more that need replacing and requesting those. Shops reopening, yes. I believe you say you went down certainly yesterday and spoke to some of those traders looking to open more widely today. Talking to KFC and McDonald's on Monday to see how things are going, but things I think generally have been going pretty well, speaking from somebody sitting sort of living opposite. Our book swap, our community book exchange has
I forgot that,
last week has moved to the post office, and I think seems to be more people find it more accessible there. They're more likely to use the post office on a regular basis and realise it's there. So I know we've had quite a few donations of new books, and pop along there and do see if there's something you'd like to borrow and have a read and take it back. What else have we got? Yes, community walk Sunday. Because we do our community walks anyway, as we did last week, just to obviously talk to residents as we go, pick up any issues that need to be reported or dealt with, and thought, well, it'd be quite nice for some residents to, if they'd like to join us, maybe they can, point out any problem areas. I know we've done this before with regards to dog fouling, where people would say where they're having problems, and just to have a nice sort of walk around a different part of the ward that people might not be familiar with. So that would be nice to have. I know we've got a couple of residents at least are likely to join us, so that will be very good. Just also wanted to mention that one of our Northtown residents is at the moment raising funds for the PDSA, and I think that they've done lots of work for so many people with pets who maybe can't afford extortionate vets fees and so on. And she's actually holding a competition, which I would encourage everybody. It's only £2, I think, to take part, and there will be prizes, I hear, from a lot of our fantastic Northtown businesses. So it's painting, drawing, or printing, or using different materials to produce a paw print of your pet's paw. Or if you don't have a pet, you can just build up a paw print. And she's also been doing cake sales around the area, which will be ongoing up until the competition closes on the 30th of July. Like I say, there will be prizes, and it's all going to a great charity. So many charities have been missing out, unfortunately, during the pandemic, having it difficulty raising funds. So that's definitely a worthwhile thing to do, and I will repost this on our Here for Northtown, just to make sure that people have the information on that. So have a go on that. And keeping with the animals, I was happy to see that we had a spate of cats, unfortunately, going walkabout. But most of them seem to have returned, which is great. I think possibly they were just suffering a bit with lockdown and decided to have a wander and get some exercise, but it was quite worrying for some of our residents. But good to see that cats are coming home.
Can I just comment on one thing then? I've got to go and do some casework at 11 o'clock, so I have to go in 2 minutes. But you're aware of the petition that we launched on saving Eagle Radio. I'm really disturbed this morning to hear, put it crudely, our opponents in Northtown putting out an article that the replacement radio station is great and we're causing a fuss over nothing. I had a long telephone call with Mr. Graham Bryce, who's MD of Voya Media Greatest Hits brand, who confirmed that Eagle Radio will be closing at the end of August. It will be replaced by 21 hours a day broadcasting from either Liverpool, Manchester or London, and the only regional programme will be a 3-hour drive programme, 4 till 7, which will be broadcast from Southampton. It will result in a number of redundancies at Eagle and multiple other local radio stations across the country. I spent a lot of time talking about localism and local links. He confirmed that the news bulletin, the hourly news bulletin during the day will be local to each specific area, and local traffic links will still be retained. But you'll have disc jockeys that may well be national names, such as Pat Sharp and others, but they won't know where Farnborough is, North Camp, Northtown, Aldershot Park, Burpham, Merrow, Wood Street. And if people think that's better, they don't understand the importance of local radio.
Oh, that's very sad.
I've just posted that on the link because there are one or two people, and I've every right to do so, but talking up the news station as if it's going to be better. It will be an equivalent, an alternative to Radio 2. It will not be local radio that we need and many people love. Sorry.
Sorry.
That's my rant for the day.
I'd suggest, Keith, that sounds like a fairly good subject for an article on your next newsletter.
I will do. Yeah. I mean, the guy's a professional. He's they're a really professional company. But you'll have, localism will be lost, which is the key.
You just won't hear them local people taking part anymore.
No,
Sometimes you'd switch in and you'd recognise someone.
That's right.
Yeah. So I didn't just mean obviously the losing the local link and all that is important, but I also think what's extremely important is to let people know that the Tories think it's a bloody good idea.
Yeah. Okay, right. I've got to depart now, but well done, Nadia. Excellent.
Good day, Keith. Have a happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, have a good day.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Happy birthday, Keith. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. Bye.
You might want to sign out, Keith.
Hello, Keith? Okay, let's move on to Wellington ward. Alex, do you have anything to report?
Yeah, sure. The town centre we've mainly covered, I think, already. What I would say is up on Wellesley, one of the residents up there contacted me and saying, we haven't got any bins here, waste bins, and litter is proving to be more of a problem. And so I advised him that the Wellesley Residents Trust is responsible for all the communal facilities on Wellesley, and he should get in touch with them to find out what their plans were. And no sooner had he done so than the answer came back, we've got the order in, and we're going to have bins everywhere on Wellesley as from next month. So a result already. So that was good.
Yes.
And I don't know if you've got any, I mean, I know there's a big issue with fly tipping and litter on the Garrison estate. I don't know if there's anything to be done about that, because it's something that's a perpetual problem there.
Yes, it is. I think with everyone moving around, and the tip only started taking the booking appointment. A lot of people are in the army are under pressure to get rid of the stuff. They have to do a handover of the house and carpet clean and everything. So they've got about 2 days to do all that. And it was just bad timing, I think, with the tip being closed and everything. But yeah, anything can be reported to Amy for now. But I think we do need a better solution. Yeah.
Can I just make a point, please?
Yeah.
I was quite shocked to hear Keith say of the Wellington, the Westgate event. As far as owners are concerned, it doesn't really matter whether or not the shops are full or not, because they still get their money. I think in that case, it's even more essential that we make sure that the council doesn't sell off this new development, you know, the Union Street one, because we certainly don't want to be in that sort of a situation a few years down the line. So I'm really pleased that you're keeping an eye on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Ros. Yeah, we will definitely keep an eye on that. I think that's important for the community as well. Chris, would you like to speak?
Yeah, thank you. Still with Wellington, I just noticed on Wellesley recently, there's been a whole crop of temporary private road signs appearing here, there and everywhere. Private road, residents only. Is that kosher? Are those roads not adopted by the council?
Yeah, so the situation up on Wellesley is that while the developer builds their particular phase of the development, they're responsible for that part of the site. And then after the houses are occupied, they continue to be responsible for that part of the site until the roads they've included are up to the standard that Hampshire County Council will accept. Now, once they've got them up to that, what they consider that standard, they then have to pass them over to Granger, the owner of the Wellesley site, to get their approval to apply to Hampshire. So although the first houses on Wellesley were now occupied 4 years ago, none of the developers has yet been through that stage. And so even Bellway, the developer who is on developed the first Maida phase of the development, has still not completed the works necessary to refer it through to Granger. And then Granger say they will require a further year before the roads can be passed to their satisfaction. to be recommended to Hampshire for acceptance. So, and this is always the problem with new developments that are done in this kind of way. There's a whole chain of things that have to be happening. And the same thing happened, for example, on the new development down in Northtown, on the old Boots site. That took a number of years to go through all the different standards that were required in order to have the roads adopted by Hampshire. And that's why on the site, it's the responsibility of the Wellesley Residents Trust, which is led by Grainger, to put in all the facilities such as bins. Now, the reason why private road signs may have gone up is there has been a problem in the past of staff and patients from the Aldershot Centre for Health going and parking in the Wellesley area. And of course, the residents up there aren't happy if they're blocked in or their parking spaces are taken up by non-residents. And that's why they may have encouraged Grainger to put up these private road temporary signs.
Oh, thank you, Alex. But long term, the ambition is that all the roads on that development will be adopted by Hampshire.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and
thank you.
That's written into the planning agreement.
Right. Can I've got to go in a minute. Can I just go off piste and give you all one piece of news which you may not have noticed? It's to do with Prince's Hall. Now, up to this point, Prince's Hall have been paying casual staff furlough money on the basis of average or anticipated earnings. But that is now coming to an end. And so there will be a gap where Prince's, because the furlough money will end for casual staff before the hall reopens. I think that's a 99.9% certainty. So the casual staff at Prince's Hall will be experiencing a noticeable drop in income. And I didn't know if you guys were aware of that yet. It only came through the other day.
I guess that's something we can take up with the council. My brief is corporate services, which would include that. And so I'm due to speak to the portfolio holder, Paul Taylor, on Monday. So I'll raise that issue with him to see what can be done in the meantime.
All right, thank you, Alex.
The only thing I have to add to that is that the library will be opening on Monday. But can we just do a quick COVID update, Alex, and then we'll finish off? But you're on mute.
Sure. On COVID, it was following the whole situation of a hotspot being discovered in Leicester and so on. It was a bit of a shock yesterday when I saw that, according to the Office of National Statistics, the COVID infections in Rushmoor had suddenly shot up. They'd shot up from 402 the day before to 593 yesterday. And the reason for that was that they now included all the past, what are called community tests, which were tests where people had felt they'd got symptoms and they'd gone to a test centre either in Guildford or Basingstoke to get themselves tested. And until yesterday, none of those results had been recorded by the Office of National Statistics. So it's a bit of an artifact, but I did produce a chart which shows the difference, whereby the first tests that were carried out in hospital and were on the 5th of March was the first infection, whereas the first test in the community, which showed an infection, was about the 12th of April. So that's the situation. But generally speaking, there are, in the whole of April, the whole of June, there were only 21 cases of infection in Rushmoor, whereas in April, there were 384. So the situation has clearly dramatically improved. And that's all I would say about the actual situation with respect to COVID. With
Can I
respect,
just ask? Sorry.
with respect to the Vine Centre, if I just may finish,
Oh.
they were this week. They had the good news that they've achieved funding in order to provide all the food that they need to until the end of November. So that was good news. Okay, that's all I need to say.
Can I just ask on the COVID-19 update? You say that there were what sound like about 190 cases which were Rushmoor but had originally been ascribed to somewhere else. Does that mean that there's been a concomitant downgrading of the cases elsewhere?
No, sorry, that's sorry. Perhaps I didn't explain it very well. There's two different sorts of tests. There are what's called Tier 1 tests, and those are tests that are carried out in hospital or care homes. And that's the results we were getting until yesterday.
Yeah.
There are also tests of people who live in the community, like Jennifer did. She felt she might have got it a couple of weeks ago. So she went to Guildford for a test.
Right.
And it's reporting back on all these Rushmoor residents who've had tests in commercial test stations, either in Guildford or Basingstoke. Right, okay. And they've been added together with the results for Rushmoor residents who have been in hospital or care homes.
Right. But they hadn't been assigned to anybody else before that. They were just things that hadn't been recorded.
Yeah, well, they've been recorded but not reported by the Office of National Statistics.
Right, okay. All right, fine. Thank you.
Okay, anyone got any more questions? Or shall we finish up? No? Okay. That's it then for today. Have a nice weekend, everyone, and we'll see you next weekend.
Yeah, okay, thanks very much.
Bye, Nadia.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.